All right, and welcome back. I hope you guys didn't go anywhere. Like I told you, don't go anywhere, man. We'll talk, rugby in America. Um, we're going to discuss rugby sevens and we're going to talk a little bit about Major League Rugby. You know, just to start off, man, it's been so amazing to witness, over the past, I'd say decade, at the growth of professional rugby within America and just how their structures just continuously improve, and I think what contributes to all of this is the amount of recruitment they do internationally, to get coaches over there and to just really lay out the structures both at sevens and at 15s, because the US used to be one of those countries, just like Japan, when I was talking in the last episode about rugby in Japan and how, a few years ago at World Cups, Japan was getting smoked over 100, by 100 points. But nowadays, when going into a World Cup, Japan might be facing, a very good team and you just never know how it's going to go, Already, teams like Japan and the US can smoke, countries like Samoa. They're able to smoke countries clearly like South Africa and stuff like that. I mean, we've seen, especially on the Seven Circuit, the Blitzbokke going down to the USA Sevens. Obviously, South Africa's won more games than lost against the US, but, there have been some crucial games where the US have edged, South Africa. So that's how good they've gotten, and to have been there, during the grinding times of USA Rugby was truly a privilege. And again, like I always say, that you never know how much you're absorbing and how much a part of history you are until it's all over. Because I can proudly say that, I was in the come-up days of USA Rugby. In my journeyman escapades or, gypsy ways 10 years ago, 10 years ago this month, 2012. Yeah, man, I embarked on my journey. I touched down and landed in Washington, D.C., and my intention was to go play rugby in America. I had no fucking idea what to expect. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't naive. I was very cognizant of the fact that in America, the dominating sporting codes are, without a doubt, your number one is the National Football League, the NFL. Number two, obviously, the National Basketball Association, the NBA. Number three, my friend in DC said number three would be ice hockey. And then number four, you get baseball. Number five, and then, you go down the list. And I think rugby in his list was like number 11th or 10th or something like that. So, yeah, I wasn't naive. I knew how far down the list rugby was. But yeah, it was a bit of a culture shock because, when you come from a country like South Africa where rugby is number one and you get to a country where, you might be in a bar and, girls asking you, okay, so what are you doing in the US? And you're like, oh, I'm here to play rugby. And she's like, huh? What's that? It was funny. It was funny. But yeah, that is pretty much what happened, man. Some people would ask, what is rugby? And if they're interested, they would come down and watch and see, what it is. And how I actually got this opportunity was through a guy who went to Queen's College, former SA Under 21, Owen Lentz, former SA Under 21, and former USA Eagle, Owen Lentz. So Owen Lentz is a guy who went to Queen's College with my late older brother, and then he moved to the US after he played for South Africa Under 21, and then by qualifying to play for America and settling down in the US, getting married and starting a family over there, he became an American pretty much. So yeah, man, I added him on Facebook the one time, as he was a friend's suggestion, and we got the chatting, and I sent him like, my rugby CV and my video footage. And again, guys, this is where I stress how important video footage is, because had I never shown Owen, what I could do, I don't think he would have, forwarded my name to his club, So by being able to show him that I could play, and that, at that time I'd had provincial colors from under 18 right up until under 21, so I was legit. So he sent my stuff through, and shout out to him, man, because, when Owen, he really got to work for me, on my behalf, basically, by just marketing me to different people. Because when he got back to me in terms of feedback, he gave me two options. He was like, listen, you can either, come to Washington, D.C. and play for the club, Maryland, the former Maryland Exiles. They're now known as the Potomac Exiles. He was like, you can come to DC, play for the club, or you can try I can hook you up with this guy, and we can try get you a scholarship to play down in Atlanta, Georgia, in Atlanta, at Life University. And I was just, taken aback, man. Wow, this guy didn't have to go through all that trouble to, to hook up two things. I was just expecting something either with his club. But so I got in contact with the guy, with his contact at Atlanta, Georgia, and we had a conversation. And long story short, it didn't end up going that direction, that I'd be getting a scholarship to attend Life University in Atlanta. It's a very good rugby university, by the way. So we opted for the first option, where I would go to Washington, D.C. and just see where things go from there. To be honest, I felt more comfortable with that option, because I was like, at least there, as much as I didn't know Owen personally, at least the fact that he was an old Queenian, I had more familiarity. I knew that I would have more familiarity with him, because he's an old Queenian, and he went to school with my brother, so we'd have at least a base to start off from, building a relationship. So touchdown in DC, and I got hooked up with accommodation, got set up, gym membership and everything. And it was amazing, man. It was surreal. It was such a surreal experience. And obviously, as I touched down, the first experience I got of America, I'd been to the States before. My first American trip was when I was 12 years old and went to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. But I had never been to DC, so this was an all new experience. First experience I got was Chipotle's, man. Some Mexican food. That shit was delicious. Fucking hell. I think that was the first time I'd ever had Mexican food, like having a burrito. So it was really good. It was really good. And I got to my first practice and really got to see how guys play in America. Definitely different to what we did in South Africa. But the one thing though that I just loved over there was just the guys' enthusiasm for the game. That you got guys that were turning up for practice that had never played, but because maybe they had played soccer, or some guy played American football, they were just natural athletes, guys at speed. Obviously they probably needed work on their hand-eye coordination in terms of handling the ball, or just working on their hands and stuff. But a lot of guys would pick up the game, quickly. I still remember we had my first training there, we had a new guy. Shout out to Sean, man. He's still one of my good friends. We keep in touch online. Sean, the year I was there, that was his first year playing rugby, and he was a soccer player, and he was phenomenal. He had speed, and he was aggressive, So those are the type of guys I'm talking about. Rugby, that was the first time he was playing rugby, and he was phenomenal. All right, and then so yeah, so when I arrived in the US, it was literally it was about to be the spring season. All right, so I arrived in the middle of winter, which is January, and the spring season usually started around, I think, early March or late Feb, early March. And just to explain to those who don't know, so in America you have the fall season, which is the autumn season, all right, and then they take a break in winter because in some states it's so cold, so they take a break in winter, and then they have the spring season because at least it's not so cold anymore. And then after the spring season, it's the summer seven season. And in all honesty, that is the season that everybody looks forward to. Everybody fucking loves the summer seven season. So anyway, before I go into that, so the national D1 spring season was about to be in full swing. I think we played about maybe 5, 6, or 7 games. I can't remember correctly. So yeah, we played those games, and that was my first introduction into American rugby. It's a humbling thing, man. You take it for granted, coming from a place like South Africa, where you've got access to abundant fields, rugby fields. It's not like that in America. Well, it wasn't like that back then. I'm sure now things have changed. Sometimes we had to have rugby practice at a soccer field. So that's that's pretty much how can I say, how MIA, or how much there's no rugby, or how little rugby is taken over there. The fact that we had to use various fields just to get a practice in sometimes, whereas in South Africa, you had rugby fields for days, bruh. So those, I would say, would be the cultural shocks I experienced within the game. But I didn't care, man. I was just having fun. I was enjoying being in America. And like I say, on the day that we had to play a game, fields would be available. So that's all that mattered to me, But I'm just letting you know that, that's how things were. And that was in, National D1. At that time, there was no Major League Rugby. You only had the National Division. Well, you had the Super League, which was pretty much non-existent as well. And then you had National Division 1, and National Division 2, National Division 3. So the team that I was playing for, the Maryland Exiles, we were in National Division 1 at the time, National D1. All right, and then, so the spring season came and went. It went by very quickly. As much as I enjoyed the 15s, I couldn't wait for the 7s, because the 7s was a great way to travel, And then when the 7s finally came, and when 7s practice finally came, you could see the excitement, the buzz, because on any 7s rugby day, man, people bring up their camp chairs. It becomes like a family day out, basically, And people just, they just sit and they watch and they cheer. And like I say, the 7s was an amazing time. And it really gave me an amazing opportunity to really travel around the US, because, we went to Delaware. I got to see Baltimore, even though I saw Baltimore for 15s as well, but got to see Baltimore. Traveled to North Carolina, to play. That was a memorable trip, by the way. We got to go play at the Cape Fear Sevens, which is one of the biggest club tournaments that is hosted in America, during the Summer 7 season. So the Cape Fear Sevens is basically various clubs from around the USA. They meet in North Carolina in a beautiful beach town. And it's a 2-day 7s festival, amazing time. So I went with the Pacific Island Barbarians. No surprise, I was the only African, playing amongst, Samoan guys, Tongan guys. It was amazing, man. They booked us a hotel. And it was, you get treated like a pro. You get treated like a pro. So shout out to Sola, man. Shout out to Sola Suthu, who organized, who was very crucial in coaching and organizing the whole event. We got to the finals, but unfortunately we didn't end up winning the finals. We lost in the finals against, I think we played against, was it 1823? Yeah, 1823, which is one of the, the known sevens giants of American rugby. So yeah, and then obviously while we were there, that weekend fell on the 4th of July. And I mean, I don't know if you've been to America, you know that the 4th of July is a fucking big deal. So after the tournament, man, there was a massive party at the bar there. And yeah, we got to enjoy off the field, activities as well, man. And yeah, I'll tell you one thing, man, the women of North Carolina, oh my God, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So after we played the final, so we're chilling at the bar, just enjoying ourselves, as a boys, just, reminiscing and nursing our wounds. And this beautiful, blonde woman just pulls up and she's like, which one of you is Chester? Holy shit. So I put up my hand. I'm like, yeah, it's me. What? How can I help you? And then she just comes and sits next to me and she's like, yeah, great game. And then she sat and just talked to me and I'm like, holy crap. I love America. But we had epic times in the US, man. And then another memorable trip, I would say, is definitely reaching the USA national championships, with the Maryland Exiles. We went through tough stages, man, to reach, to win our division, basically. And then, to make it to nationals. And when we made it to nationals, that was an experience of its own, man. Because that year, the nationals were hosted in San Francisco. So that was my first trip to California. And I mean, flew first class, man. And so getting to San Francisco. So basically, the rugby tournament would be played in like an island sort of setting. So when you're on that island, you can see the beautiful foggy city of San Francisco. And yeah, man, look, at that tournament, guys came to play. As much as we were there to enjoy, just the ambience and the festivities of everything. No, look, that was pretty much the best of the best in every single state in America. So we had to represent. We fucking had to represent. I think to reach nationals, they took the top 2 teams of every single state. So guys came to fucking play. I mean, ending the tournament, I think we ranked around 10th or something like that. But we didn't do too badly. But I mean, there were better teams. We did what we could. We had a couple of good games. We had a tough pool, but I mean, yeah, we managed to do well, overall, type of thing. And so that was a tournament. Colin Isles was actually discovered. And I mean, it's surreal to think that I was present at the tournament where the fastest rugby player in the world was discovered. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play against him. I would have put in a late shoulder just for the kicks of it. But yeah, man, we got to watch him. I think he was playing for San Diego. He was playing for San Diego, Golden Gate, and man, he was, dude. Watching that guy going around guys, it was unbelievable, man. It was surreal. And you could just tell that this guy was going to be a special player. You could just tell. But anyways, so that was a great experience, man. USA Sevens National Championships. It also gave me an idea of what level USA Rugby was at that point. And it also sort of gave me an idea. And it also showed me that, USA Rugby was on the rise. It was on the come up. So Yeah, man, it really was an amazing experience. Competitive, super competitive. Like, you also got to notice just what freak athletes America has. Because you got a lot of guys that were former football players that were, and sevens to them came easy. Because of the fact that within sevens you don't have to be a structured rugby player. It's not like 15s where it's super technical. At sevens, if you got speed, you got power, you can make a clean tackle, you're at least good to go. And that's what you saw from a lot of these clubs, man. That a lot of these guys that were former college athletes, college football athletes, massive guys, speed, that were just there playing, so yeah. And funny enough, like, me and my brother would always say that we believe America is a sleeping giant when it comes to rugby, because the day that those guys really invest in their rugby is the day they become a threat to the big boys of world rugby, which is South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Wales, England, France, Ireland, Japan, and so forth. The day that America really, really, really decides to invest in their rugby, I promise you, all of world rugby will be in trouble with the freak athletes they have over there, man. But yeah, just that whole experience, it was... I could never articulate into words for you guys, man, just how amazing it was. I mean, I was there for 8 months. I was there from January 2012, and then I left in August of 2012 to go finish up my studies at UNISA in South Africa. But luckily, while I was in the States, I was able to continue with my studies through UNISA. But because America was so fun, man, my studies were suffering. My studies were suffering. So I was like, nah, if I'm going to complete my studies, I need to return home, because America is just too much of a jump, man. It's just too much of a party. I was enjoying myself way too much where my studies suffered. And the deal I'd always made with my parents was that wherever I am abroad, I need to get my studies done. So when I broke that promise to them, I had to honor my half of the agreement, that I would go home and I would finish my studies. Because that's the one thing that they always wanted from me. They were like, listen, we don't mind that, you keep going away for your rugby and everything, but you got to make sure that you finish your studies, because at the end of the day, one day you're going to be done as a player, and we don't want to leave this world, being worried about what's going to become of you after your playing days are gone. So shout out to them, and shout out to them for always being on my case about it, because, we got the studies thing done. Yeah. And then we went back for more even. I even went up to master's level. So that's the one thing I'm grateful for about my folks, man. But yeah, America. And then off the field, look, I'd love to tell you guys a couple of stories about, the off the field activities we got up to. America was wild, and I was 23. Going on 24. I was a young kid. I was single. So we definitely had our fun in the States. Yeah, we definitely had our fun. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to keep this PG. Keep this PG. But all I'll say is, if you're ever planning on traveling to America, the one thing I will reassure to you is that American women love foreign accents. They love foreign accents. So, yeah, take my advice on that. Travel to America. Anyway, all right. So next, so we've just been talking about sevens. So that was sevens at a domestic level. Just quickly, sevens at an international level. I mean, everyone has gotten to see just how much America has improved on the international seven circuit. And it's because of the structures that they've laid out over there, where they've got like a high performance squad that trains in Chula Vista. I think that's in San Diego. Yeah, in San Diego. They opened up like a training center at the Olympic Training Center. And the rugby players, basically, that are professional, they go and they stay there and they literally focus on rugby full time. So that's where your Colin Isles, stay there. Your Perry Baker and stuff like that. And yeah, one of the boys who actually used to play with me at Maryland Exiles, who played with me at Nationals, is actually over there. He gets to train over there at the Olympic Training Center. Aki, shout out to Aki, man. He was a young kid when I was playing over there in the States. He was still raw. He had speed. He had strength. But, it's been amazing to witness Aki grow over the years and become, the phenomenal rugby player that he is. That now he's literally with the USA 7 setup. Amazing stuff. So congratulations to you, Aki. If you ever hear this, I'm proud of you, young man. Well done. And then one of my other friends, Trevor Tenefum, he was also with the USA 7 setup at one stage. But after he qualified as a lawyer, he moved to New York and he focused on his law career. Epic memories with other guys like Alfred, Junior, Deagle, Sean. Like we were a tight-knit group, man. We really had fun. All right. So back to the international setup. So yeah. So USA 7s, and I think the fact that they've also gotten in the coaching structures, they've managed to get some guys from like New Zealand, Australia, even South Africa as well to get involved within their coaching structures. So yeah, no, they're definitely on the up and up. And I think because their main goal, man, they want to come back with that Olympic gold. They want to win that Olympic gold. And I think the day that they win Olympic gold at Rugby Sevens, I think that will literally be, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but that will probably be like almost every single sport that America's been able to win an Olympic gold in. Because, as we know in athletics, they dominated for years within track and field and within other sports as well, swimming and so forth. So yeah, so that's what they eye for in the Rugby Sevens. And you see in the way like their athletes take it so seriously. Like in every single Olympic year, USA Sevens athletes, men and women, they go hard on social media telling you and, trying to speak this shit into existence that we're coming for that Olympic gold, And obviously within the men's section, Fiji remains the dominant Sevens powerhouse. Interchangeably with South Africa and New Zealand, but Fiji remains at the helm, and USA Sevens, they're like, we're coming for that top spot, So yeah, so this past decade, so just watching them from a distance this past decade, because America will always have a special place in my heart, man, and knowing that I was, I had some sort of contribution in whatever way in the growth of rugby. The mere fact that I went over and I got to ply my trade and I got to share my experiences and my knowledge of the game with the Americans makes me feel that I'm in some way I was involved in the growth of the game, and that's a special feeling to have, man. It's a feeling that I'm going to take with me forever. All right. And then obviously on the 15 side, Major League Rugby sprung about. All right. So just to be clear, so when I was there was no Major League Rugby. There was no MLR. There was always a professional tournament in the talks, but there was no Major League Rugby. And to see what Major League Rugby has become, the amazing sporting product that it has become in such a short space of time is phenomenal, And I think they've really done well in growing the product, and how they've also made sure to get marquee players from, major parts of the world to come over and play. You got guys playing, you got guys like Cecil Africa, you had Kurt Coleman playing there. You got guys like Brendan Rams, who's also from South Africa, who's playing for Austin Gilgronis. So you got a lot of guys that played at a high level that are playing in the Major League Rugby. You know, you had Matteo Bastaro from France, man, that powerhouse of a center. He was with New York United Rugby. So they've been very smart in growing the game by making sure that they get big names to come over and basically endorse the tournament. That's been very good. But I like how USA Rugby has struck a balance that as much as they like getting these marquee players from all these different major rugby markets, they've also maintained and made sure that their local boys spring up and are also on the rise. You know. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see what MLR will be in the future, because I've got no doubt that it's gonna be, they're gonna be a powerhouse. You know, Major League Rugby is literally becoming an option for rugby players when wanting to go play abroad. Teram Tembu of the Sharks, he played a decade for the Sharks, and when he decided to go overseas, guess where he went? America. You know, he's with the New England Jacks or something like that. But he's playing for a team in New England that plays in the Major League Rugby. You know, so USA Rugby has become an option now. Can you imagine that? Fuck, bruh. 10 years ago, that would have never been the case. Guys usually went to America when they were really close to the, you know, to the end of their careers, and they wanted to just become pretty much player coaches. You know, like your Piedri Vandenbergs and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, before the Major League Rugby, there was a tournament that they tried to start. I think it was around 2015 or 2016, which was the National Rugby Football League, the NRFL. Yeah, the NRFL. But things didn't end up working out that way. It didn't end up happening. And then the Major League Rugby has managed to stick. You know, they got teams, and I think the big city teams are the ones that are really going to spring up, because what person, growing up, you know, we're all exposed to this Hollywood thing. When you watch on TV, you watch all these movies that are based in your New Yorks, your Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Miami, and, you know, and so forth. So growing up with that imagery, and imagery is important, you know, it's everything when it comes to advertising. So us growing up with that imagery, you're like, one day, man, I'd love to live in America. So when it comes in the form of an opportunity that, hey, do you want to play for a pro team in America? That person's answer is obviously going to be, fuck yeah. Who wouldn't want to live in New York? Who wouldn't want to live in Los Angeles, man? Who wouldn't want to live in Las Vegas? You know, who wouldn't want to live in Miami? It's the imagery that's portrayed through Hollywood and everything that is exposed to the media about America that is the pulling factor. That is the attracting factor to most people. But apart from that, man, the Major League Rugby is well marketed. It's super professional. Like if you go and you view their content, they're also creating like magazine shows where they're really advocating and promoting Major League Rugby, which just goes to show that, you know, that Americans are going hard at making sure that this product sticks, that it catches fire, that, you know, it gets the public's attention. Because already, you know, according to stats, mothers do not want their children playing American football in like at a young age, like at school level and stuff like that. They're rather opting for the safer options. They rather want their kids to either be involved in soccer or in rugby, because they view them as the safer options. This whole outburst of the whole CTE thing might just be in the future. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but maybe in the next 10 to 20 years. Who knows? Maybe this CTE thing that keeps creeping up within American football might be a momentum shifter towards rugby. It just might be, because in rugby, these guys are not, you know, there are no helmets, no shoulder pads. And you got to remember, Major League Rugby is also getting televised. They were able to strike a TV deal with Fox Sports. So they are literally mainstream. It's exciting times, guys. Exciting times. So yeah, man. So this brings me to the end of my podcast. So I just wanted, to just to make it a rugby podcast for today. I hope my soccer followers aren't going to be pissed off about me that I dedicated today's podcast strictly to rugby. As you all know, and I've been vocal about this, I am a former rugby player. So rugby is always going to have a special place in my heart. I'm always going to talk rugby as well. But don't worry, football is also a part of me. I love it. So there's going to be more soccer football content than there is rugby. But yeah, this idea just sprung up to me, and I just wanted to talk about rugby, and obviously to share one of the emerging rugby markets. Just like Japan, USA is one of the emerging rugby markets. And having lived there 10 years ago, it's been amazing to witness at what rugby is today, within the country. It's still not number one, but I definitely believe that USA Rugby will curate or form its own lane where they will still be able to make themselves one of the giants within world rugby. You wait and see. All right, guys. And just before I go, man, make sure support the podcast, man. Get the merch. I'll make sure to add the link to the merch on our description. So rock the merch, man. And thank you to everyone who keeps supporting the podcast. Thank you to all of you. I really appreciate you, and I love all of you. All right, so I've got to get up and get on with my day, man. And like I say before signing off, we don't only talk sports, but we lived it. All right? Enjoy your day, enjoy your night, wherever you are. Stay safe. Take care. You've been listening to Sports Biz from an agent's perspective. From your host, Zila, aka Chester Mbekela. I'm out of here. Cheers.